Hey, Bulls and Bears, what's happening? I'm back here. This is Saturday, April 1st, 2023. Welcome to April, folks. We are done with the first quarter. And as usual, we've got a lot of good stuff to get into today. First of all, I'm sipping on some hot chocolate. I'm now a month without coffee. I know this is a pretty big mug, isn't it? A little bit chilly here in San Diego this morning. Woke up, it was about upper 40s, which is kind of cold here for San Diego. You know, us Californians, we're not used to anything really below 50 that often. So I'm bundled up drinking hot chocolate. And this is natural hot chocolate, by the way. This is the cacao powder. Is that how you say it? It's the cacao is the seed from which cocoa and chocolate are made from. So you mix it in there. You put in your favorite beverage, just hot water and a little milk, non-dairy milk in my case. Add a little sweetener. I try to use natural sweetener like stevia, and you've got yourself some healthy chocolate. I'll actually put a link down to my favorite cacao powder down in the description of this video if you're interested. It does help out the channel if you buy it through that link. So every once in a while I like to share those things because health is wealth. And yes, you want to stay healthy because health is wealth. What good is your wealth if you're not healthy, right? So a lot of people, they get distracted by pursuing wealth and they ignore their health. And I've been guilty of that in the past. I've had some problems that I've been trying to resolve. I've got skin problems, and I've been doing some big changes to my diet here. So let me get into that real quick, and then we'll get into the financial news. I've eliminated dairy. I've eliminated gluten. I've eliminated caffeine and coffee. What else have I eliminated? A lot of bread. I'm trying to stay away from breads and carbs and pastries, anything with added sugar and gluten. I mentioned that. So I've been feeling a lot better lately. I don't know if you could see it in my face, but I feel a lot more energy, a lot more awake. And I used to need coffee every day just to stay awake, just to function, just to stay focused. So that's one distraction I want to talk about. But the other distraction is a lot of the news that's coming out of the political world and the financial world both. Is I think it's meant as a distraction. And I see a lot of blame being thrown around here, blame thrown to the left, blame thrown to the right. But it's really a lot bigger than a lot of people, I think, imagine. And I don't want any of us here to get distracted. So here's one example. There's a few people out there saying that the reason for the bank runs is social media, blaming people posting on social media that the banks are, not in good shape, that is causing the panic. Well, if the banks had the funds to cover when people take their money out, then you wouldn't have to worry about it in the first place, right? So let's get to the source of the problem. Let's not be distracted by silly things like saying that social media is the reason for the bank runs. I mean, come on, let's get real. And also, you're going to see a lot of blame thrown around to different people. It's his fault, it's her fault, it's their fault. It's not any one person's fault. It's not any one party's fault. This is a systemic issue. And I blame the people, just the population of the United States and around the globe, just as much as I blame the ones that are supposedly running this financial system and this economy, because the people were not paying attention. People want to focus on other things, and it's fine. I like to do fun things. I like to watch sports. I like to play sports. Not much now as when I used to, but of course, have fun. But most of the people are just 24/7 consumed with entertainment, not worried about what's going to happen tomorrow, not worried about any big problems out there. And there's nothing wrong with being optimistic, right? I think being optimistic is good, because if you're just negative all the time, it's not healthy, and that goes back to health as wealth. Now, I can definitely understand and see why people would get that way, because it's easy to look around and see what's happening, and you feel like you're just a leaf. You're just a leaf blowing in the wind. That you're just the subject of whatever forces of nature come our way, and that's partially true. But you can also be very choosy about what you decide to do, where you decide to live, how you decide to live. And I'm not saying I have all the solutions here, but I think a lot of us here on this channel are going to be better prepared for what's coming than most people. Whether that's choosing where you live. Now, I've been criticized for staying in California because of the cost of living. Well, when you have a family and you have kids in different schools, and you have relatives. It's not easy just to pick up and leave. You know, I've got multi-generational relatives out here in California. And of course, I could live in a cheaper state. But everywhere you go, you have different problems. If you're away from family, that could be a big problem in itself because I happen to rely on family for a lot of things. Transportation, just family stuff. I've had to rely on family to live before. I told you guys when I first moved to California, excuse me, I lived in my great aunt's travel trailer, right? So I moved out here, relocated from Michigan, found a job right away. Didn't pay much. Wanted to save up for either renting a place or getting my first home, and ended up buying a townhome about 21 years ago now. And I was able to do that because I stayed in this camper, didn't have any rent. I helped out around the house. The reason I didn't want to stay in the house because she had a bunch of dogs and I have allergies, allergic to dogs. So I was like, okay, I'll stay in your camper. I'll help out around the house, save up money, and that helped. That was a nice, getting my foot in the door, so to speak, of living in California. But see, if it wasn't for relatives, I would have never been able to do that. The move out here. Now there's a lot of things. Family moved out here from Michigan. They basically followed me out here because they came out to visit and they were like, wow, this is paradise. This is back in the early 2000s and things have changed a lot in California. But back in the early 2000s, coming out here from Michigan, from the winter and the weather and the salt on the roads and the ice and all that, coming out here was paradise at that time. I mean, and I've got my family out here now that came out here. I got my dad out here. My sisters are out here. And other family members now are out here. Of course, I expanded my family, so I've got a family now surrounding me. But that's just an example of how it's not easy to just pick up and relocate. Now, maybe down the road a few years, it'll be easy for me to relocate, and maybe I'll do it at that time. I mean, California, definitely, we're seeing an exodus of people from California. According to a report here I have recently, we lost about 500,000 people in the past 2 years, which is not a lot when you have a state of 40 million people. I don't notice any difference driving down the freeways. It's still busy. I don't notice the loss of 500,000 people at all. But people are leaving for what is in their mind greener pastures and better places to go ahead and relocate. All right, but let's go ahead and get into some news here. Let's talk about Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab is a broker slash bank, and they were recently downgraded by Morgan Stanley. One, because of all the outflows. People are taking their money out of there looking for higher yields. People are flocking right now to money markets, and in money markets you can get a lot better yield than you can with most banks and most brokers just leaving the money sitting there. But also they're sitting on a lot of unrealized losses. Here's some numbers on that. Over $29 billion in unrealized losses because the company holds over $150 billion worth of debts to maturity with a weighted yield of about 1.75%. So this is something that people didn't factor in when they chose their financial institution or their banks. Banks, brokers, they invest your money. As soon as you get it, it's invested. And a lot of them invested it in low yielding bonds and treasuries. And now with rising rates, those bonds, those securities are not worth as much, right? So it's an inverse relationship. When the yields go up, the value of the underlying bond goes down. So a lot of these banks, institutions are sitting on a lot of unrealized losses. And it's interesting, I was listening to an interview and it talked about how the stress tests that were applied to the banks here in the last few years never even factored in higher interest rates. There was always this assumption that whenever there's a financial crisis or economic situation that comes up, a decline in the economy, there was always the assumption that they're just going to go ahead and drop rates. Well, now we have high inflation combined with an economic collapse / financial crisis. And I couldn't believe this. So I went and looked it up myself. The stress tests never even factored in that there would be higher interest rates. They never even bothered to envision that scenario that they'd have to keep rates high. They never factored in inflation. That goes back to what we were told. We were told that inflation was temporary, transitory is the word. And so obviously they never factored that in, right? So how crazy is it that these stress tests were so filled with holes and gaps that it didn't even factor in economic reality that we're all seeing right now, right? So a lot of stuff out there is meant to make you feel complacent or make you feel like that everything's under control, that everything's fine. Also, a lot of distractions, like I said earlier, with what's happening right now politically, and people are going to blame one person or another, and oh look, this person's bad, he did that. When you just look at this is the tip of the iceberg to all of the shenanigans that are going on behind the scenes. And I think over the next few years we're going to see a lot of revealing of the true state of not just the economy of the world in a lot of different ways that you probably can't even imagine that we're going to see news come out here. So things are going to get bad and a lot worse before they get better. The good news is there is a light at the end of the tunnel. If you know that this is the path we're going to take, you're going to be prepared for it, both financially, and mentally. All right. But Charles Schwab, be careful where you keep your money. Again, I'm an advocate here, as most of you know. I'm an advocate for hard assets, keeping some money out of the system. A lot of people never even contemplated keeping any money out of the system. Now, so far, people have been covered because the FDIC came out with the other entities and said, okay, we're going to cover all deposits now. But they left the question mark out there that some of the regional and smaller banks may not be covered if you have more than 250,000. So we're continuing to see outflows from banks, not just Charles Schwab, as we spoke about here, but other banks are still seeing big outflows. In fact, just in the past week, depositors pulled another $126 billion from banks. And this is the week ending March 22nd. So it's continuing. It's slowed down from the first week or two that we saw the emergence of this banking crisis here. But this is not done by a long shot. And I think the more news that's going to come out, the more people are going to pull their money out of the banks. That's going to lead to more stress on the regional and smaller banks. And we're going to see what happens. But get ready for the rest of 2023 to be a wild one. And we're now in the second quarter of the year. And things are just getting started. Things are going to get very interesting. So hope everybody is doing good on this Saturday. Stay healthy. Health is wealth. Link to my chocolate drink there, natural hot chocolate, down in description. And we'll leave it at that for now, folks. So keep stacking. Be well. We'll talk to everybody very soon. Bye for now.